All right. A very good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. A very, very warm welcome to Orchestra's webinar about market trends and year-end priorities. My name is Bram Londen, responsible for sales within Orchestra, based out of Dubai. We will inform you today about what we see in terms of market trends and what we foresee the priorities would be for Q4 and going forward. But before we do that, I want to very, very warmly welcome my dear guest, Jürgen Schulz. We have a nice past together. We worked at the same company, so we were colleagues. So I'm very happy, Jürgen, that you could make time for us today.
Sure.
Maybe you can explain a bit about yourself, but before you do, I just want to say Jürgen has 40 years plus, I think, even Jürgen, of supply chain experience. So an absolute expert in the field, I would say. I always saw him as my supply chain father. So Jürgen, again, a warm welcome. Please, you have the floor to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, thank you, Bram. Yeah, it's nearly 40 years, yes, that I'm working in supply chain. I was mainly working in supply chain consultancy and was running a company as managing director that has done both, so consultancy, but also we offered supply chain planning software for the customers here in Europe. I'm located in Germany at the border of France, in Karlsruhe, so close to Heidelberg, for the audience that is maybe not so familiar with the small city of Karlsruhe. As said, I have that little backpack of these 40 years experience working for, the industries that are typically for Europe. Hope I could have helped some of the clients in the past, and looking forward to talk to you about this really, really, really challenging year-end quarter that we face.
Thanks, Jürgen. Very good. All right, let me see. Let me try to pull up the slides. Yes, there we go. So we did a bit of preparation for you. Today's session is all about market trends and year-end priorities. So let's jump straight into it. The global market trends that we see within supply chain basically divide themselves between four big topics, I would say. One is the cost topic, as always, yeah. So fluctuating ocean freight cost, air freight cost. Beginning of year very high. Now on the decline a bit, but I'm sure that for the coming months and foreseeable future will go up again. Tariff pressure obviously is a big topic at the moment, especially when you deal towards the US.
And I think, Bram, if I may, it's not only tariff pressure with regards to the US, but I think the free trade itself is under a big pressure. If you look into the supplies from rare earth materials, for instance, from China. So there is much more than just the US tariffs that we face as a problem here. Yeah. Bram, you're
some
falling out.
Technical issues. Yeah.
You've been falling out. Yes.
I'm sitting in a different room.
Oops.
Anyway, I hope I can continue the talk. So thanks, Jürgen, for covering that one. From a disruptions perspective, obviously the unrest, especially at the moment in the US, but also in Europe, yeah.
France.
In France, that political unrest that even leads to companies stopping their positions in the companies, leaving their factories unbuilt and moving towards greener pastures. That's one of the topics that is happening in the Netherlands, for instance. risks around cybersecurity and compliance. Cybersecurity not only in terms of attacks towards your own company and company's infrastructure, but also in infrastructure worldwide, looking at airports, for instance, like yesterday and the day before. You see there's a lot of impact there. So yeah, these kind of bigger trends that is what you see at the moment, and I think the main question is what can we do about it, or where should we focus on? What can we do in terms of impact for ourselves? So that's what we will touch upon a bit today. Jürgen, if you have any additional comments to make on this, please.
Sure. And I think you mentioned it, cybersecurity is really a very big issue currently. It's not only the current attack with the ransomware to the European airports or major airports, but also the a German authority has just released a report saying that the ransomware attacks in Germany have risen to a record high since they ever started this KPI. Yeah, so it's also very important. It's going from big to small companies. So no one is safe anymore, and that together with the digital shift that we've on the very right hand side of the slide, where we're lacking behind. We have gaps in the integration between supply chains or the levels in the supply chains. Participants of a supply chain. 3PL transportation providers, truckers, and the big customers that they have, the big shippers, there is always different levels of maturity, which is always a kind of a threat, especially with respect to cybersecurity, where we need to be very cautious to not run into major risks.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jürgen. Thanks for that addition. So the presentation, we are touching three main points, I would say, or it evolves around three main points. One is data, the other is simplicity, and then the third one is synchronization, and how and what can you do in Q4. So the first one is data, a very interesting topic always. Jürgen, you were telling me a nice story from the past, that when you started your humble career, the issue was also very much on data, and that has not changed. I believe. I think one perspective to take is even maybe there is too much data, or companies are sitting on such a pile of data that they don't know what to do with it anymore, and they disrupt their own decisions in that sense, with too much looking at too much angles. So what our belief is to really find the right data, yeah, as simple as that sounds, based on smart filtering and giving a systematic view to the users that actually are in need of that typical data at that very moment, through rules and signals and notifications, basically. So that's typically what we do within Orchestra in order to confront and support the employees and the agents, your suppliers, maybe your customers or customs brokers, whomever, with the right data at the right time through these kind of notifications and signaling, I would say.
And if I may add, Bram, to this data point, it's not only that it has been a continuous partner in crime in my career, that data quality was always, data availability and data quality was always an issue. But I fear, with the rising acceptance of these technologies that we find everywhere in the market, the volume of data has risen incredibly, but I fear that the focus on quality in data and accuracy in data, that has not risen in the same level. So, I mean, if we look into, the challenges ahead of us, correct and relevant data is more or less key to be able to make, use of the tools and then to have success with the Q4 and the oncoming 2026. I think that is really very, very important. Don't give way for bad data or bad data quality. You need to fix this, especially if you think of, there is so many companies that now focusing on AI. Yeah, and if you think large language models, which is more or less currently the major hype, you'll find these hallucinations, yeah, which is more or less a kind of issue. But if you look into industrial grade AI, there is no room for hallucination. Imagine, someone takes a decision based on a hallucinated response from an AI tool. That would be really very difficult. So you need to have the right data. Then AI tools could be trained on a specific set of data that cover your industrial needs. And then, you can integrate those AI results and tools and data in your processes, in your workflows. So I think that's really key to have this quality right.
Yeah, I spot on, Jürgen. And I think to add to that, what you see with these kind of technologies, yeah, we are already highly depending on them, and definitely more in the future. And we always joke in the company about, but you still need to know what right looks like, yeah. So you still, as a user, need to know with all your experience. What should it be? Yeah, that it helps you in bringing it together and make it presentable or make it judge-worthy, so to say. The judgment still is done at the moment by that employee or that agent.
Oh, he's gone again. So until he comes back, I might then just focus one more time on this AI data and the volume of data. I mean, predictive maintenance for logistics networks and in logistics nodes like warehouses, terminals, etc., is quite an important thing because you have to keep your OTIF up and running. So once you have this data from the machinery itself, so sensor data saying, well, which is the temperature of my motor, which is audio signals from a specific machinery, to tell you if it's okay or not. So the amount of data is incredible, but you need something, that helps you to filter out the right data. And that is also very important to have, then the right data, the right tools to select, as Bram was showing on the slide, use that smart filters and rules, to have the right signals that you need then to work on. I was just recently on an event where we've been discussing, the importance of this industrial grade AI to make right decisions. And then having right decisions on that shop floor level, you can also go then up and have the next levels like tactical and strategical processes where you can add those data into.
Yeah, and I think good data is one thing, but a good data line is also important. Yeah, so I hope I can stay on this conversation, Jürgen. But thank you for covering that part. Yeah. So the right data on the right time, and still being able as an agent to judge that and to know what is right. Yeah, is for the foreseeable future still very relevant. I would say. So if you then look at what we call simplicity, the hidden multiplier, we called it, yeah. The opposite is obviously also true. Complexity often hides value, yeah. So you do not see the clear and right path anymore due to all kinds of complex processes, tools, separate tools that are not interlinked. And I think simple equals doable equals repeatable. And what we often do is really have like a systematic and a clear playbook for that fast action. Yeah. So if you are presented with that right data, how do I now make quick judgment on that? And how do I pass it on to maybe a next station or a next user within the entire supply chain? Yeah. Or how do I give the right feedback quickly towards and in an easy way towards my vendors? Yeah. So these kind of topics is what we typically cover within Orchestra as well, and how we focus on those. You know?
Yeah, and if I may add from to this simplicity issue, I think it's also very important. If you look into the market right now, there is a big number of big tools that support supply chain processes, and on the other hand, we have an incredible number of startups that help you, you know, to focus on one little tiny step within that big processes that cover your supply chain. So sometimes it sounds very nice and very helpful, you know, to just focus on close this one problem that you face, but you also need to consider, you know, how to integrate those helpful tools or apps, you know, into your total workflow. And you need to focus on this simple process. Otherwise, if you add more and more interfaces, you will be somehow lost, you know, in this sense. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it touches upon the next topic about synchronization as well. Yeah, so synchronizing also helps in terms of simplicity. I think one of the other topics that we recently focus more on, and I'm not sure how you see it, is what we call microservices. Yeah, so we had some customers coming to us. To give you an example, for a venture capital, we were working on their mergers and acquisitions. Yeah, how do you do that? A simple checklist in terms of what do I need to think of in terms of data, in terms of integration, in terms of system landscape is already something that is so simple but can be so helpful in order to determine your way forward. Yeah, the same goes for frameworks around S&OP processes, yeah, straightforward, and then you can tailor make that for that specific customer in order to help him in his his or her unique position. But these kind of microservices, or however you would like to call them, and like you say, a lot of startups have that as well, yeah. But how does that landscape then come together? Yeah, it's all nice ideas, all nice building blocks, all nice modules, and all existing in their own right. But how do I synchronize that? How do I, to speak in our terms, how do I orchestrate that? Yeah, how does it all come together to work seamlessly in that sense? And that's what we understand under simplicity.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Then the next, well, we already touched upon it, I think, is the topic of synchronization. So data and simplicity, how does it now work together? Yeah, it's all to do with synchronizing all the activities within your supply chain, and not only activities, I would say, but also your partners within that supply chain, even more so. Yeah, so your suppliers, your customers, your 3PLs, whomever you use to forward your your shipments, the different tools that are in place from a transport management perspective, from a warehouse management perspective. But how does it now balance out? Yeah, how do I balance demand versus supply in a certain seasonality? And how do I synchronize that collaboration between those parties? Yeah, how do I update each other? So one of the sayings here is weakest link is basically every handoff. Yeah, So every time I connect with another party is actually one of the potential weak links that you have in your supply chain, and is something that you might think of for.
Oh, he's gone again. Seems to be a bit very weak connection today. Yeah, and I'll just jump in with the synchronization, not following Bram's words, but I think that the synchronization is the key for success in your supply chain setup. As the graph on the right-hand side of the slide shows, there is so many different participants, stakeholders in a supply chain, and I think it's not the only, or it's not fully described here, but if you look into transportation, you often have a 3PL that you contract, and then you have a subcontractor and another subcontractor. So it's really all about connecting those different players into a successful and synchronized supply chain that really then delivers what you expect.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard the entire story, Jürgen,
Oh,
and I can only agree. Yeah. It keeps dropping me out and immediately in again, so I'm not sure what is happening, but I could follow every word, and all good. Thanks. Yes. So going to what does that then mean in terms of a loop? Yeah, because like you told me, Jürgen, supply chain is actually a race without a finish line. Yeah. So you were explaining a bit of history. Maybe you can explain that one to the audiences as
sure.
well around customers that you were involved with.
And actually, this slogan, I borrowed it, if I may say so, from Dubai ports on the expo in Dubai, where they said that excellence is a race without a finish line, and that you can easily translate to every process, and especially to supply chain management and operating supply chains, because the changes that we have seen in the last 40 years in supply chain technology, in warehousing, in transportation, but also in the surrounding world, like the tariff issues, the governmental changes, regulatory changes that we have seen, especially in Europe, where this is a real big thing. So that means you always have to adapt. You always have to keep up with the different changes. That means it's supply chain management is a race without a finish line. And we showed this here in a circle because, I mean, you always have to, follow this circle. And for me, you always start with data, because that's the foundation, where everything starts. If you don't have data, you don't need to think of a simplicity, because then your tools will get the wrong information, the wrong basic idea. And then what should a tool with the wrong data set deliver? I mean, it could not deliver a good quality solution. That's impossible. Yeah. And then also synchronization will then fail, because you've made the wrong decisions earlier. Yeah. So this is an end-to-end work, and you have to go through this wheel over and over again. And as we've been talking about, the different elements. I mean, there might be the one or the other that we could add, but for simplicity reasons, we have focused here on the 3 points: data, synchronization, and simplicity. And I really think, especially for this year, after having seen for like nearly 3 years with the war in Ukraine, how the world has changed, we also see the need that the days of setting up a supply chain based on the idea of economies of scale, straightforward, one shipper, one ocean freight line, etc., these times more or less have disappeared. So we need to be more adaptable. We need to be more open for changes. And that's why supply chain management is a race without a finish line. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you were touching upon the very first point around
Yeah,
Q4's immediate actions, yeah, safeguard guard
yeah.
supplies, huh?
And yeah, and safeguard supplies is really a very important program. I mean, Q4 is more or less the final stage in your full year financial views. So you need to make sure that Q4 for many industries it's the quarter, you know, with the high revenues. So you need to make sure everything's running smoothly, and supply chain has to add you know, the goods that your sales guys can really make it happen then. But in the current world, look into Suez Canal and the Houthis. You know, some ships go direct now through South Africa, prolonging the lead times by like 7 to 14 days, depending on the route and the ports they take. So that is something that you need to take into consideration very early. So if you now have to safeguard your supplies, you better have, you know, the right plan. You have the right selections made with your suppliers. You might also have looked into your inventory, saying, well, am I safe enough to cover at least, let me say, another 2 weeks of delay due to some of the issues that we face, maybe in the Far East. I mean, the situation with the tropical storms or political tensions is still ongoing, and that might, you know, for instance, currently the tropical storm that is running into Hong Kong and Macau region, you know, coming from the Philippines, that might also slow down the traffic from the southern ports of China. So you need to have those plan A, plan B, and plan C in your cupboard, and to make sure you get everything you need. And then it's a part of the synchronization. You need to know what is already underway, what's on which ship, where is my truckers, what does the supplier in China or in Vietnam or in Thailand has confirmed in volumes. Do I need to do something else, or a second supplier or whatever? Yeah. Safeguard supplies is, I think, really one of the very important or most important actions in running into Q4.
Yeah, and I think if I may add to that, one of the discussions we had earlier with regards to precious metals, for instance, yeah, if you are heavily reliant on China, you never know what is going to happen. What is
Exactly.
your plan B? Yeah, to source from Vietnam will basically mean you still source from China, yeah, because they will
Exactly.
source from China. Huh? But is there something that I could do like more on the west coast, yeah, in that sense? Maybe South America has something where I can have a second supplier ready. Yeah, this is not something that you establish in Q4, but the thinking process and what is actually happening in the world is something you should try to start now. With regards to that, one other topic that we wanted to bring to attention is like a supply chain. I call it the supply chain checklist, basically. Yeah. So it's a conscious way of going over your entire supply chain. Did I think of the right topics, basically? And am I still in the right position? Yeah. Or do I see certain improvements in terms of maybe digital, in terms of inventory, in terms of seasonal goods? Do I want to discount certain things because I want to have stock space available for the coming years? These kind of very simple checklists can help with that. And I think I mean, we can provide those topics to you. Yeah, so I think you can reach out to myself or to the orchestra team in order to find that checklist, and then really pick out. Sorry, Jürgen.
And I just wanted to add one, because you mentioned inventory again. Just wanted to mention one statistical value that currently was giving out by the German Logistics Association. They've been asking like 5,000 companies in Germany and parts of Europe on the state of their inventory running into you know, the Q4. And this year, 31% of the companies said that they feel very comfortable with the status of their inventory, to cover the Q4 needs. Whereas last year, it has only been 15 or 16%. So obviously, some of the companies already, but it's like a third of the companies, they already started to pile up. So to be prepared, what we mentioned earlier, to be prepared for potential risks in their supply chain during Q4.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it is good that as a company for yourself, so how we look at things in Orchestra, is really to try to make simple starts, really action over perfection in that sense, So find yourself that one improvement that you would see within your company that you can act upon now, and these kind of supply chain checklists can help you with that, so if you look at those improvements and if you need help in terms of calculating the right ROI for that, you can always reach out. We are more than happy to help there as well. That's what we typically do for our customers anyway in the sales process. Really help them in building that right return on invest and that business case to have the internal backup to really move forward. But start small and simple. Prove to yourself that things work, and then build upon that. Make sure that you have a model in place that is scalable to really put on all those microservices and build out your entire landscape as desired.
Yeah.
And I leave the last point, Jürgen, for you.
Yeah, thanks, Bram. So I think a very important point as a Q4 activity is, prepare for 2026. And so you should already in this last months and weeks of the year prepare and launch a successful Q1, because if you only focus on bringing the financials for 2025 back home, then you might wake up early in Jan and you see, oops, they will run into a problem. So in these weeks, you should try and secure and renegotiate maybe some supplier contracts. As we said earlier, maybe you look into a kind of diversification of your supplier base to be more resilient with respect to the potential risks that we face in various parts of the world. You should also try and look into your contracts with any third party that you might have, from warehousing to transportation, ocean freight, air freight, whatever, because now is the time, to at least secure a big portion of your volumes. Leave always some space open for the spot rates, because we've been seeing in the last 5 years incredible changes in the ocean freight rates, incredible highs and very low prices. So if you have a kind of tool to balance, between like 60, 70, maybe 80% of your volumes that have a long-lasting contract, but you then have still some 20% open, to play around with spot charter, then you might be in a good position. But that you need to somehow decide in these weeks before the year's ending. And then you also should prepare for the oncoming regulatory changes, especially in EU. We have new packaging rules that will be relevant from the beginning of the year. For chemical industry, we have some new safety rules with the beginning of next year. So everything, that is focus, or that will put some pressure on you, on your business, on your supply chain, you should look into already today and in the next weeks, to have everything up and running, as we said. in a simple process, as simple as possible. I mean, sure, only simple processes will not work in supply chain, but as simple as possible, as straightforward as possible, and that you can already, with these new things you would add to your processes, that you have still that synchronized setup for your supply chain, and that you also can then start into the next year on this race without a finish line. Well, that would be the launching for Q1 26.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jürgen. I think with that, we come to an end of, our talking time, I would say. We wanted to leave some room for potential questions if people have that. So, yeah, there we go. Pre-submitted audience question. Try to understand how you can steer. You can't or hardly can change your port you're using, import conditions, etc. What can you really do? So I think this is a question, Jürgen, feel free to answer it, but it revolves around, I started shipping my goods, it's underway, I foresee delays, or I see delays happening, what can I do?
Yeah, and it's like I touched before, if you have the data available, seeing, that there is a container on a specific ship that is in delay, if you then have let me say, your second option in supplies, you might call them up and say, well, something I need very urgent, and then you order a specific, maybe smaller volume, but then you might then ship with another faster mean of transport so that you can overcome this specific issue. On the other hand, I would say that it's clear that what the person has written here is clear. Once you have established the supply chain, you have contracted everything, it's underway, it's really hard to change anything. I mean, that's obvious. But what I can say from the past, we've been helping companies and customers by already, before you do any contracting, offer supply chain setups and structures in plan A, plan B, and plan C that you have in the table in your board. And then you can also make some contracts, with this shipping line, maybe a specific percentage of your volume, and then you have a second one that is already running. Yeah, so maybe with a smaller one, so you get a bit of a problem with the economies of scale. So the prices might be then a bit higher than if you just focus on one, but you're more secure. And so you need to prepare for this problem that you face in this question, maybe a kind of half a year before. But once you have that, and I was working for one company in the do-it-yourself business that is serving Europe with their retail outlets. I mean, they have been, they have been having tremendous improvements with respect to OTIF, with respect to reduction of detention and demurrage, using such an approach, where you plan ahead and then, just fill and use the right plan A or plan B or plan C.
Yeah. Okay. So you say basically for these type of questions, it's really tough to do something at that moment, but prepare yourself. Yeah. So in Q4, exactly. Prepare yourself for 2026 is basically what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Then there's another question I see with regards to visibility. How do you ensure accurate data availability and real-time data during transit for air and sea, and also ensure data points for road with subcontracted 3PL, 2PL chains on truck or unit level? I think in a sense, yeah, so we already spoke about it, find the right data sources. Yeah, a lot of this kind of data you have yourself, yeah. A lot comes from your suppliers, which you can easily connect to. If it is third-party providers like 3PL that do not typically give their data, you can maybe in the beginning contractually make that part of the contractual agreements, yeah, to say, listen guys, if you want to do business with me, I need from a data perspective this and this for you, so this is how you could overcome it. But I also know that there are on the market certain companies that also provide port congestion data, these kind of topics. So it's basically create yourself a environment, an ecosystem of the right data sources, either from yourself or negotiated with your suppliers or bought from third-party vendors, in order to build your own visibility there, yeah. And I think you have to critically look at what kind of data you really need, yeah. Some data you might think you need, but actually you don't, yeah. Or you, like the example before, you do not really have an impact anymore once things are on the way, yeah. So what do you exactly need there, yeah, in terms of handling and visibility? So that's I think my answer towards.
And if I may add, Bram, I think especially with the last part of this question, subcontracted 3PL, 2PL chains, you know, I would like to add that there is a couple of platforms out there in the market, you know, that offer very simple, you know, ways for everyone, you know, to add data. So if you want to follow one specific truck, and this is more or less, you know, handed over, the load is handed over from one to the other, what you have to do is have a platform that allows, you know, to use different technical entries. That might be text messages, that might be an app that adds data, that might be a web interface, whatever. But it's important that you not only have just one, yeah, you have to use my app. Yeah, well, might be difficult, but offer different ways to bring in data to your platform or to wherever you need that. So there is a couple of providers out there that make that easy. Not so easy is it on sea, because sometimes, you know, you have some providers that only show you port data when, you know, ship is leaving the port, but when it's underway, it's somehow difficult. So you need then to have providers that add GPS signals and so on. Yeah, so that is then more difficult than just on road.
Yeah, no, good addition, Jürgen. Thanks for that. Looking at the question, I think that was it. Yeah, with that we come to an end of the webinar, I think. But we will not stop before thanking you very much, Jürgen. Honestly, always an honor to speak to you. The amount of things you know about supply chain always amaze me. So thanks again. For the audience, thank you very much for joining. I believe our marketing team made some links available in terms of when you want to have a look at the supply chain checklist or need help with calculating certain ROIs for your potential initiatives for this quarter. Feel free to reach out also to me by email or by other means. Having said that, Jürgen, thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
See you soon in the future, maybe in Berlin.
Absolutely.
At the BVL. And
exactly.
Otherwise, I wish you all a very pleasant either start in the day, end of the day, or a good night. And thanks for joining us today. All right. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.